Sounds good.
Okay, we are live. Welcome to this Soul and Social. Today is a super awesome day. My name is Tarah, and I'm here with my fabulous co-host, Renee. Hey, girl.
Hey.
And we are joined by Bryna. Hello, I'm so excited to have her here. We were just like chair dancing it up already at the start because we thought we would get our mojo on, get in the groove.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to have Bryna here. I'm just going to introduce her. She is an inspirational inspirational speaker, philosopher, waymaker, coach, award-winning best-selling author. She is the creator of Choose Your Evolution. She helps conscious entrepreneurs, change makers, leaders, and influencers navigate growth and change so they can step into their biggest vision in the most intentional way possible. I'm pumped to have her here. I got to know Bryna through the Inspired Living Publishing family, and I'm just so pumped. I'm so pumped because I know this Choose Your Evolution, you're evolving.
It's been a crazy year and so super awesome. And I'm really excited to be here and speaking with both of you. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. We're expecting to have you. We're a whole lot of something happening there. We're excited to have you. So you're both published authors.
Well, she's published in a bigger way. So Bryna was like the editor of Inspired Living Publishing since 2010. So all those like amazing books have come from her lovely hands. She's just brilliant. Yeah, magical. Just magical.
It was a really great experience, working with many authors and getting to know so many stories and, so many amazing women through that community. So yeah, absolutely.
So what, you go ahead, Tarah.
Well, yeah, I was hoping maybe you could tell us a little bit about your journey because you just had this massive event in Rhode Island, in Providence, with speakers, and I want to hear all about it. I saw pictures, I was excited about it. So it's like, let's talk about this journey, like from that to this and where you're at, and you're doing so much magical stuff right now. So I just can't wait to hear all about it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it really has been an incredible year. And so all of this sort of came about because I started really delving into the idea of purpose. And I feel like for those of us who work and operate in the conscious business community, purpose is like a big buzzword. Like you have to find your purpose. And when you find your purpose, it won't feel like work anymore. And if you don't have a purpose, then you're just spinning your wheels. And there's a lot of heaviness that can get attached to that for anyone who doesn't feel that innate connection to what they're doing in the moment. And so I had this incredible work that I was doing. I was working with Inspired Living Publishing. I've also worked with other independent authors, bringing inspirational and personal development books to life. And like, how do you not feel on purpose with that? And yet I didn't. And what was happening for me is that I had always had this vision of myself sharing, speaking, being on stage, and yet I had created a business that was an entirely backstage kind of role. And those of you who know me well can tell you I've never been really a backstage kind of person. And I think that what happened was I was having this vision over and over of like me on a stage. I'm like, what the hell does this mean? What is this? And I would just push it away. And when I started, really, it was like winter of 2018. I started just asking, like, why don't I feel purposeful in this work that I'm doing? Because it's so amazing, and I'm working with so many amazing people. And what's the disconnect? And I started asking myself, if I could do anything all day, every day, what would that be? And the answer, of course, was talk to people about personal development. It wasn't necessarily the act of putting words on the page that I was so in love with. It was the ideas. And once I really figured that out, it's like, well, I have ideas. I can talk about my ideas. Let's do that, And it just all sort of formed and started taking shape. And I decided that I really wanted to start finding my voice around everything that I've learned, not only working with my authors for the last 12 years, but also in my 20 plus years of studying personal development on a deep level. I've been a certified yoga teacher since 2009. I taught yoga teacher trainings. I taught yoga philosophy, and, did a deep dive into that, did a deep dive into magic practices and earth magic. And, all of these different pieces that I was just ignoring and not integrating into what I was doing. And so no wonder I didn't feel on purpose. I was only bringing a third of who I am into my work. So it just sort of just took shape and took off. And so for about a year now, I've been working in this Choose Your Evolution project, which is really my way of integrating the many sciences and ideas and practices that have helped me really evolve into this next stage of being, and have helped me evolve at various stages of my life. It hasn't just been this, obviously. We all have a story and a path that we followed, and we've all undergone, many of us, really massive evolutions. But bringing all those tools together and then creating a community that can actually support people in having that evolution has become really important to me. Because it's not just the ideas, it's the practice, it's the daily engagement, it's the energy healing, it's the deep dives and the emotional, reprogramming that happens. And, we need multiple various resources to do all of that. So I've kind of taken it upon myself to create a community of resources for people who want to do really deep evolutionary work. So.
I love that.
That is so exciting.
It is really exciting. And so the event that we just had, Evolution 2019, was kind of the kickoff for all of this. And we had, it was in Providence, Rhode Island at the Omni Hotel. We had 36 amazing women, 5 speakers. We had 4 women who contributed their healing practices.
Wow.
Speaking of that sort of bodily integration, we had Reiki, Thai massage, oracle readings, Psych K, belief transformation work. And everybody sort of not only got the intellectual and inspirational piece, but also the real grounding around some of these practices and validation also for what they were learning and experiencing. So it was so much fun, and the community that we created was just absolutely incredible. So I'm just really just in the space of gratitude ever since the event ended. When can we do this again? When can we do this again? Where are my ladies at? I need you guys back here. So yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's one thing that most people forget about, because I think so many of us go through, or we have that catalyst kind of moment, that experience that kind of shifts the course of where we're going and how we're going there, and the thoughts we're taking with us. And I think for a lot of people, it can be really challenging because they might not have the support or the people behind them to support those changes and encourage them, because so many people get attached to the old identity of a woman, that once you go through these shifts, woman or man, once you go through these shifts, it does change you. You can't not be changed by experience. So I think, what you're doing and what you're offering is just amazing, because I think it does sound like it offers that support to women who are going through those experiences and shifting into their new purpose.
Well, I think it's not just that. It's actually even more deliberate than that.
Yeah.
Some of us are lucky enough, or unlucky enough, as some people would probably have it, to have those cosmic 2x4s that like whack us upside the head and like, you've got to change or die, and some of us have had those moments.
Yeah.
But I think that too many people are waiting for those moments to give themselves permission to evolve.
Yeah.
And, when this happens, then I will be able to. And it's only ever a choice. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to wait around to see if life delivers me permission to grow and change. I can't anymore. And I did it for a long time. So I know what it feels like to be in that space. I feel like when we really step into our power as creators, we're no longer looking for that permission, for that outside sort of lineup to happen before we institute the changes that are really going to get us where we need to go. Mm-hmm. And so what I like to help people create is a process of small but deliberate choices in order to actually create an evolutionary pathway. When we try to manufacture the cosmic 2x4, that doesn't work either.
No,
because it's so far outside of our norm and our comfort zone that it might stick for a little while, but it's not part of our programming yet. It's hard to hold a really massive shift, but little small evolutionary steps done very deliberately, that's a rapid pathway to change, and it's manageable, and it's something that can be done, again, very deliberately, always stepping into this next version of who we are. Realizing that it's like a 2-degree shift between where we're going and the path that we're on and the path that will lead us to actually what we're dreaming about. It's not like having to become a whole different person. It's just upgrading your version of you.
For sure.
Yeah. I love that you said that, because it's true. It's like putting a penny in a jar every single day. It's those like little action steps. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have all this, I've accumulated all this, and I have all this abundance and this momentum. And I think that's the exciting part, is when that momentum starts to come, those little action steps, then all of a sudden it just kind of takes off.
Yeah. And it also erases the dissonance between who we want to be and the version of us who can actually create what we want. Because according to the law of attraction, if we were being the version of us who can create what we want, we'd already have it. Right. So there's something that's dissonant in there. And again, most of the time it's a tiny shift. It's a tiny mindset change. It's a tiny behavior change, but there's some dissonance there. And when we try to set the bar too high for shifts, what ends up happening is that we go into a guilt spiral because we're not creating it. And, or we get frustrated because we're not creating it. And so, one of the examples that I love to use, and I know this works here because I know there are a lot of entrepreneurs in your community, right? But if you want to create $1 million business, you cannot show up to your desk every day as an overwhelmed solopreneur. Yeah. Because that behavior, that mindset, that set of actions and ways of being is off center to where you're going. You have to start showing up as the version of you who can have what you want. So that might mean getting more organized or hiring some help or little things that, you wouldn't think would be so fundamental to creating such a big change, but they really are. And then you get to reaffirm to yourself that you're showing up in your life in this way. And that starts to retrain your brain to actually recognize the opportunities and pathways that are aligned with where you're going.
Yeah. Well, and it's essentially the baby steps too. And,
exactly.
Every change is made up of 1 million little baby steps.
Exactly. And again, there are moments that force us to change all at once, and they're uncomfortable, but they're profound and transformative. But it's not always the best practice to wait for those, because you might be waiting a long time. And and really what all of this evolved out of is that I just got tired of waiting. I got tired of waiting for, the milestone that would give me permission to be who I wanted to be in my life. Like, not going to happen unless I do it. So it's my choice now.
Bulldoze and right on through. I love it. I love it.
I do a little bit of bulldozing. I do.
I've had enough. I'm done.
I love it.
Well, and I love it because it's using that creative energy. And like you said, you've over the years, it's it's fun when you look back now and you see how these bits of what you do now makes so much sense to your evolution and, stepping into that higher version of yourself. What do you find holds, like, is there a common theme that you find? Because you've read people's stories, so many of them, like they're deep stories. Like, you must have seen some kind of pattern or something over the years that comes up where they kind of, was there something, I guess, a similar pattern or similarity where you find women get held back? Like, even when you talk about asking for help, like for some women, that's such a hard thing to do.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And really, and what I noticed, working in people's stories, what I notice now working in this new sphere of speaking and catalyst work is that it all comes down to our self-definitions. And sometimes it's the really sneaky ones that get us. It's not like we talk about I am statements, right? And how I am statements and affirmations are so powerful. But what we don't fully realize all the time is that every single label we give ourselves, even if it doesn't immediately feel negative, has a whole set of perceptions attached to it. And so when we are unwilling or don't even think to question those perceptions of ourselves, we can't write a new story, right? We can't update the programming, if you want to say it that way. And even labels like I'm an introvert, right? That comes with a whole set of associations. Well, if I'm an introvert, then I must not, I must not be comfortable in crowds, or like whatever our perception of that label is, and it's unique to everyone, but you have to examine your own perceptions. I identified as an introvert for a long time, and I really thought that meant that if I chose to have a more public platform or do public speaking, that it would burn me out. I really had that belief. And the solution to things like that is just to look at, well, what do I want this to mean to me? And we have all these definitions, and some of them are so intrinsic that we don't even think to look at them, like mom, right? What does it mean to be mom? What does it mean to be an entrepreneur? What does it mean to be successful? What does it mean to be an empath, right? The labels that we put on that don't seem, it's not like I am awful, or I am not, like those shame labels. But anything that you have a set of parameters associated with, if you don't feel like it's allowing you to fully do what you want to do, you got to look at that and say, am I willing to redefine this in order to be able to have what I want? So I think when it comes to the stories, and the stories that we tell ourselves, and the stories that we go back and we rewrite in books or otherwise, it is those self-definitions. We go from victim to survivor, or from victim to thriver or teacher. We go from insecure to confident. And it's when we rewrite those self-definitions that real change starts to happen, because now you're living in an I am that's aligned with what you want to create. So yeah, it's really fascinating to look at. And it has a profound impact when people realize that some of the things that they've been telling themselves about who they are actually malleable. They're not fixed. They're not set in stone. And they can define those things, those labels, according to how they want to show up in them, not according to how they've been told they need to show up in them.
Yes. Well, and so many, like you said, so many of the I ams are from other people's, like our childhood. They're not even our own.
Exactly.
They're the people that raised us. And I think that is a huge, 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 huge thing.
Yeah. I mean, I know that I struggled with this around being a mom. And, the way that my mom parented us was so super nurturing and super focused on us. And she was a stay-at-home mom for 16 years. And here I am. I'm like, I don't want to stay at home. I don't want to stop doing what I'm doing. I still want to travel. I still want to create this. And I was, for so long, I carried this guilt because the mom label was not fitting me very well. It felt like wearing someone else's clothes. And in my mind, I'm like, does this make me a bad mom? Because I want to do things differently than the typical sort of mom outfit, right? And I really had to come to terms with that, because I didn't realize that the simple term mother carried so many implications for me. And I think that when people get into to looking at those self-definitions and just saying, what else is possible? Is it possible to be a good mom and run a thriving business? Of course it is. I see it around me all the time. I just wasn't allowing myself to have that because it didn't fit with what I had experienced, right? Is it possible for us to leave behind some of those shame stories, right? And or to live beyond some of the traumas that we've experienced in our life. And so to me, even when people are saying I'm a survivor, sometimes for some people, not everyone, but there's a label attached to that where part of my self-identity is rooted in this survivor piece. And so I never really moved beyond the trauma. I've just relabeled it. And so when of course I'm not a therapist and I don't have any professional, input in this. I can
have life.
what I've seen, and so to me, it's again a question of reframing. What does it mean to me to be a survivor? What does it mean to me to be whatever this is? And what do I want and need it to mean to me in order to outcreate what I've created before?
Well, and I think, even so small within that is just like in my experience with my clients, it's just been shifting the survivor to thriver.
That's so,
and shifting that, because you're right, there is that trauma still connected to being a victim or being a survivor. And it doesn't matter if it's a big trauma or just a small thing. We have all survived something, all of us. So, and sorry, got me excited. Love that one.
No, totally. And again, it's not about, having to choose a particular word. It's just about what that word associates for you. Yeah. And so, if being a survivor feels strong and super empowering and you feel like you can stand in that and feel like you're bigger than what you've been through, then hell yeah, that's working for you.
Yeah.
But if not, it might just be that 2-degree shift that helps you step beyond that into more of who you already are, more of who you can be, more of what you can experience and have and attract and be nourished by. So it's so individual. It's almost like, everybody has to kind of go in there and ferret this out for themselves.
For sure. Well, and you're right, an evolution of.
Are you writing on a book? I was starting a book already. I'm just wondering. I'm like, you must be, right?
I started my creation process with a book title and a mock-up cover, and I called it Quantum Evolution. And I haven't actually started writing yet, but it's on the docket for this year. So that will be coming out. I don't know when or through what avenue that'll be happening, but it'll come out soonish.
I had a sneaky feeling, and I'm like, I love that
because I've just announced this on SOUL&Social right
here. This is the chair dance time now.
Yeah.
I love it.
Even on that note, sorry, go ahead, Tarah.
Well, I was just going to say how awesome this is, talking to somebody that knows so much about words, about the importance of words. Like, words are magic. And I love that you talked about the perception of what that word specifically means to someone, because, language is different. We have so many different cultures and countries around the world, and one word can mean one thing to somebody and something vastly different to somebody else. We find that even with texting and communicating on social media. I think sometimes, things can be confusing. So, Bryna, would you say it comes down to more about the things that you're telling yourself, or asking different questions and reframing those thoughts that you're having?
Yeah, it's all about the questions. So I've always been the kind of person who never took anything for granted, and I question just about everything on a regular basis. And to me, the best question, and this comes from the Access Consciousness practice, which I haven't studied formally, just to be clear about that. But it's just, what else is possible? And so, if you find yourself telling yourself, well, I can't have that, or I can't do that because XYZ self-definition, the best question to ask is just, what else is possible here? So, okay, that's one set of possibilities, because we exist in this quantum universe, which is full of infinite possibilities. And we get the ones that we get because we've somehow aligned with them or chosen them. And so what happens is, when we define ourselves in a certain way, and we have this identity that we've built, that identity comes with a certain field of possibilities attached to it. And anything outside of that, somehow is like beyond our current viewpoint. It's like way off in our peripheral vision. It's still there. It still exists, but we're not seeing it. We have our blinders on because of these ways that we've defined ourselves and our world and our relationships and all the things. And so if you're running up against that wall, what else is possible? You know, I'm so overwhelmed and I have so much to do. Okay, great. What else is possible? And if you keep asking questions like that, the really cool thing about asking questions is that if you ask your brain a question, it cannot help but answer it. It's like an actual phenomenon, and I'm losing the words for it right now. But it really, like, any question that you ask yourself, you absolutely have to answer. Your brain will not let it go until it's answered. And so when we ask debilitating questions, like, why don't I have that? Our brain will actually go to work finding answers about why we don't have that. Or why, you know, well, she's got what I want. Why don't I have that? Or, you know, or those feelings of jealousy or insufficiency or insecurity. We ask those kinds of questions like, why does she get that? And I've worked so hard and I don't have that. Why does she have that? And then our brain will actually go to work telling us all the reasons why we don't have it. Because you've just asked your brain to find some answer in the field of possibility to validate the question that you've asked. So when you start asking better questions, what else is possible? What do I have to do in order to get what I actually want? And when we ask questions that are aligned with our sort of non-negotiable values, right? I have decided that I am going to create XYZ. What is the best way for me to create that? And then your brain will go to work literally brainstorming all of the answers for you. But if you ask, why can't I have that? Then those are the answers you're going to get. And I think that most people in their minds, maybe not out of their mouths, but in their minds, ask the questions about why they can't have, as opposed to why they can or how they can. And those are the reflexive questions that we've trained ourselves to ask. And we just have to flip that switch and start asking better questions.
So, okay, I have one more question.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm like, I have another question. So when you find yourself, you know, you get caught and you're like, oh no, I'm going down the wrong rabbit hole. I don't want to ask this question. Is there something that you do? I remember Dr. Reba was talking to you. She does something like cancel, or is, you know, I know there's different techniques when you work with clients one-on-one, but is there some kind of advice or something that you could give to our viewers that maybe they could implement quickly when they find that, oh no, my thoughts are veering where I don't, what do I do to change that direction?
Well, there are two things that I teach. And the first is that in an infinitely possible universe, in a space of infinite possibilities, the one that you're thinking of is possible. But there are also other things that are possible. So if you find yourself going down that rabbit hole where you're like, oh my God, you know, this is going to happen and this awful thing is going to happen. It's like, yeah, that might happen. Like, acknowledge that. Don't try to bury it, but then ask what else is possible. Or, you know, what other possible outcomes could I see here? So like, yes, I could have this very difficult conversation and it could go like just complete shitstorm and it would just be awful and our relationship would be ruined. Or it is also possible that this would be exactly the conversation we need to have the healing that we need, and that it might repair our relationship and make everything better from now on. And once you start asking your brain to look beyond this narrow funnel that you've created for it, you start seeing that there are other possibilities, and then you have a better choice about which one you actually want to create. The other thing that I like to teach people is to actually ask questions that align with who they are becoming. So the version of me who has what I want, right? That's who we want to act as, because that's what's going to take us on that evolutionary pathway. So, if we're like in a box and we're trying to make a decision that feels really heavy or whatever, instead of acting from who we're being right now, because who we're being right now has a set of possibilities attached to it that we may or may not like. What would the version of me who has what I want do right now? What would the $1 million business owner do right now? What would the completely abundant version of me do right now? What would the version of me who has all the love and joy she could possibly ask for do right now? And again, you're setting your brain on a different question that it cannot help but answer. And so if you ask those questions from the point of view of your future self, the self who has what you want, who has these inherent qualities that you're trying to cultivate, your brain will give you answers. Oh yeah, well, that version of you would totally do this, this, this. And then the scary thing is you have to do it. And you have to do it. And then as you're doing it, you can say to yourself, I'm doing this because I am a person who, fill in the blank. And then after a couple of times, you stop having those visceral reactions and your brain actually gets on board. You've actually reset your sort of filtration system. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm doing this because I am a person who, and it actually starts getting into the subconscious loop. And I believe that the statistic around resetting this particular function of the brain called the reticular activating system is 72 hours of consistent practice. If you can practice consistently for 72 hours, your brain will flip a switch and say, okay, these are the parameters now. So, I'm making decisions as a person who values herself. What would a person who values herself do right now? Oh yeah, I'm doing this thing. I'm having this hard conversation with a client because I'm a person who values myself. And if you keep reaffirming that, eventually, and this is what happened for me when I started practicing this, eventually after, some consistent practice, but really not very long, when you have to make a tough decision, your brain will actually pipe up and be like, wait a minute, what are you doing? You're a person who values yourself. You're not going to do that. And you'll actually start to feel the dissonance coming from the other direction. And it's a really cool practice. It works so well for those small decisions. Do I go to the gym? Do I not go to the gym? Like little things like that. Well, I'm becoming a person who takes really great care of herself. What does that person do? Yeah, she goes to the gym even when she doesn't feel like it. And then if you're driving to the gym and you're like, I can't freaking believe this. Like my to-do list is 8 miles long. And I'm like, I can't believe you're taking the time out. You just say, hey, I'm a person who values her health and wellness, or whatever your mantra is. And you just say it a few times and eventually your brain will be like, oh yeah, okay. And then it's done. And you've made the decision and you can move forward as this new version of you. And those tiny steps over time, you rewrite your self-definitions. So those are the tools that I love to share around this. And they've been really, really powerful for people. Just, getting out of those rabbit holes, like you said.
I love it. It's juicy. It's juicy goodness.
I like juicy goodness.
It's like juicy goodness. It's soulful goodness.
So I guess I have a question. Being
Sure.
You have done this, I'm going to butcher this, but this book writing stuff. Oh my goodness. Editing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Holy Hannah Renee. It's been a long day today. So I've got a coffee on the go and a tea on the go and
my kind of woman. Oh my! I've got a giant thing of chai right here. It's like as big as my head. Yeah.
I figured it wasn't good to pull out the bottle of wine quite yet. So for women wanting to write a story or be a part of a collaboration, what advice can you give to them? What little tidbit of knowledge or wisdom can you give for people who have a story burning in them to tell?
Absolutely. Well, the way we tell our stories is kind of fundamental to how we show up in the world and how we see ourselves. So just to be clear, I am phasing out of the book world. So I'm no longer doing editing. I'm finishing up some current ghostwriting projects, but I'm really moving into this teaching and speaking world. That said, I have a network of amazing editors, publishers, people that anybody who wants to write can work with, and I'm happy to do referrals for that. But in terms of writing your story, whether or not you even intend to publish it, the act of writing your story from a teaching perspective can be so powerful and so healing. And so for anyone who wants to engage in something like that, whether it's, for publication or for their own evolution, the first is to start with the end in mind. What do you want this story to create for other people, right? Is it a pathway out of depression or anxiety? Is it a sense of solidarity? Is it a feeling of inspiration? What are you teaching by telling the story? Because every story teaches us something, whether we intend it or not. We learn through story. It's human nature. And so, so start with an idea of what you want people to experience on the far end of your story. What are you creating there? And then as you tell your story, again, it's about, training your mind to focus. As you tell your story, you start to make these connections to details and events and sequences that you might not have ever experienced before, that really show you how the path that you've walked has actually led you to where you are, and how much power and grace you can derive from that. And so, one of the things that actually inspired me to move into this space was some of the coaching that I had done with my previous authors. And for most people, self-defining as an author is one of the biggest first steps. I'm not a writer. I've never been a writer. I'm not good with spelling, like these kinds of things. They're barriers that hold people back from actually writing their stories. Yeah, but you did it, baby. You're all good, right? You felt the fear and did it anyway. And so, I'm the worst speller. Oh, all right, really? And
no, I'm awesome. I'm awesome. Just kidding. Sorry, keep going. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, it's fine. But really, like, it's when people have these ideas that being an author entails having this skill set or having this sort of temperament or something like that, it'll hold them back. So the first thing we have to do is just figure out a way to identify as who we're becoming. And one thing I tell people is that there's a difference between being an author and a writer. And a writer is someone who has a particular skill set and engages in a craft. An author is someone who produces a piece of work for an intended purpose. And so, one of the things that I kind of feel, especially because I've done some ghostwriting for people, for books and for other projects, is that they are still authors, even though I'm the one doing the writing. They're creating the material. It's their ideas, their story, their energy. It's all going into it. I happen to be using my craft to funnel that through. And to me, that's the fundamental difference between being an author and being a writer. And not everyone wants or needs to be both. And so, if people have a story, but they don't see themselves as like, the next Ernest Hemingway, it's okay. You don't have to be, because being an author is different. It's publishing ideas and stories and expressions that are unique to you, whether or not you ever develop the skill set of a writer. So I think that's really important.
Oh, I love that.
I did too, because there definitely is a difference.
There's a huge difference. And I think that once people understand that, there's a lot less fear involved, because you don't have this insurmountable skill set to master before you're allowed to put words on paper. So, yeah.
Well, and I think it's incredibly brave for those of you that have done it to do it, because you are putting your story out there, and I mean, you are being seen. And I think it's beautiful when you can, step out from behind the veil and actually let yourself be seen like that. I think it's amazing. So kudos to you both.
Yay!
Well, I think it's such a part of what we do today is telling our stories and, kind of why we are here, and look at how you've evolved. I love the name, by the way. I just love it. Choose Your Evolution. And oh my gosh, you have shared so many amazing things today. This has been just awesome. Like awesome. I just want to jump up and down.
Yay. Well, I'll give you a virtual hug.
We're virtual hugging. We're virtual hearting. That was more like an O. It's hard.
Thank you so much, Bryna, for joining us. And yeah.
What next event? What is it in the works?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. So I'm actually in the process of creating multiple events for the next 12 months, one of which is Evolution 2020, which I'll be announcing soon. There'll be like a pre-sale ticket link and speaker applications for anyone who wants to take part, sponsor applications. It's a little bit more involved this time around because we're going in a bigger way. So that'll be announced within the next month or so. And I'm also putting together some women's circles, which involve retreats and like all kinds of amazing stuff. So if anybody's curious about what all that looks like, you can just send me a message or check out my website, and all that'll be emerging on the website relatively soon. So,
oh, I love that.
I love it. And people can find you on Facebook, and you also have a community. I don't know if that's a secret community or not, though.
No, absolutely. It's open to anyone who wants to join. It's called Evolutionaries. It's just a Facebook group. And we have great discussions in there every day. And it's just a place for people to just, have some discussion and accountability around their personal growth. So yeah, anybody who is interested can absolutely just send a join request. I'd love to welcome you in.
I'm like, shoot, I said that out loud now, and I'm like, oh, wait a second. I didn't think about that one. I'm like,
yeah, all good. It's all good.
Well, and you're on Instagram as well?
On Instagram as well, at Bryna Haynes. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
We will drop the links below too.
Yes, we will. We'll drop the links below. And thank you so much for joining us. We'd love to have you back again.
Thank you so much. My pleasure. It's been wonderful speaking with both of you.
And we hope, I know everybody who watched will have gotten something out of it. And, if they want to contact you to work directly with you or whatever.
Absolutely.
Social media.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Just get in touch. And even if anybody just has anything that they want to share or a question that they have, I'm so open to people messaging and emailing me. I just really want to have an open line of discussion because we all need this. It's just some degree, we're all evolving. And so I just want to show up and support that in any way I can.
I love it. It's amazing. Is there anything you want to just leave us with, one little last thing, a piece of advice for anybody? You've said so much. I mean, you don't need to, but if there's anything else, please.
Oh my God. Okay. Last words of advice. Let me think about this. I think it's really that you don't have to create your world, your reality according to someone else's parameter. You actually can have your cake and eat it too. You simply have to make what you want bigger than all of the other definitions that are out there boxing you in. So
I love that. So important.
I love it.
And eliminate the mom guilt, ladies.
Oh, the mom guilt. The mom guilt is so big. We all have
big.
In my head right now. Yeah, it's not necessary. We are all doing our best, and we're doing it beautifully, and we're doing it differently, and all of that is okay.
And you can have it all.
And you can have it all. You totally can.
I love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been amazing. And yes, we will definitely have to have you back on again and follow up with us with your events. And we'd love to post them and share them out here in Canada.
Oh, thank you so much. That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm excited. We have one day IRL will meet.
Yeah.
It'll happen.
Absolutely.
We've said it now, right?
No, it's non-negotiable now. It has to happen.
I mean, we've got moon circles going on. Come on. Hello. I'm there.
Well, seriously. Oh my God.
You know that one.
Yeah. It's all good.
That's awesome. Well, thank you everybody for watching. Thank you, Brenda, for joining us. And yeah, thanks for watching. Have a great week, everybody. And we will see you next Thursday. Like, love, share, comment below, and we'll be sure to reply. Thanks so much for watching, Ken. Have a great day.
Thank you.
We'll end on chair dance.